I have the pleasure of talking with Dr. Charlie Nelms about his recent book, and I found it very enlightening, inspirational, everything. It was so familiar, and I just love the way you went about telling your story. And the title of his book is From Cotton Fields to University Leadership: All Eyes on Charlie, a Memoir. And he has written another book previous to this that gave tips and about life, but this was just a wonderful book overall. So thank you for being with us this morning,
Well,
Dr.
thank
Neal.
you so very much, Dean, for having me. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here.
Well, I knew something about you before coming to Bloomington, knew you were a wonderful alumni of our program. But reading this book, I'm like, wow, I had this gift amongst myself and amongst us, and I just got to utilize that more. I didn't realize that until reading this book, how special you are, and with all your experience to be here for us and to be here for me. So I'm equally honored for you to be here.
Well, thank you so very much. And I must say to you that I'm delighted that you are here at Indiana University. And as you may recall, during your first week or early in your
Yes.
tenure, I came
Yes.
by to visit
Yes, you did.
and just wanted to say hello, and
Yes.
ended up sitting there talking
Yes.
a long, long time, taking
Yes.
more of your time than I
Yes.
should have at that
Yes.
critical period. But I'm delighted to be here, delighted that you're here.
Yes.
And I dare say that except for Indiana University, my life may very well turned out quite differently. And so I have, not that I had a perfect relationship
Sure.
with Indiana University as a
Yes.
graduate student,
Yes.
but I tell you what,
Yes.
I left with tenfold more positives than non-positive experiences. And so I'm just grateful to have had this opportunity to study at Indiana University, and it's really wonderful to see you as Dean of our School of Education.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's talk about the book. So why did you write the book?
I had a number of reasons for writing the book, but first and foremost, I really wanted to honor the memory and the contributions of people who nurtured my dreams and really supported me, who served as mentors for me even before the term mentorship was really coined and its wide use in as wide use as it is today. So I wanted to honor the memory of those people. Secondly, I really, when you die, people tell these lies about what your life was like and all of that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I really didn't want there to be any mistake about
Sure.
who Charlie Nelms is or
Yes.
who Charlie Nelms was.
That's
And so I
wonderful.
really wanted to tell that story, the positives and the not so positives, and what my journey had really been like, in hopes of inspiring and encouraging other young people who may or may not come from similar circumstances as I
Yes.
did.
Yes.
So it was designed to honor and acknowledge, to inspire, and also to leave behind a record.
Yes.
Okay, that
Yes.
Charlie Nelms
Yes.
actually passed this way. Yeah.
And I think you accomplished all of those throughout the book. I mean, everything you said with inspiration and leaving a record, what I found so wonderful about reading through the different chapters and how you captured some of the nostalgia, but also the memories through spirituality and other things. So tell me, what was it like to write and to be so vulnerable?
Painful.
Painful. Huh?
It's one word.
Yes.
It was very, very painful, and but the more pain more pain occurred, the more painful it was, the more I recognized the need to keep writing. And so I had a really good writing coach, someone I've known for a long time, and so she wouldn't let me get away with just
I
a surface
see.
comment.
Yes.
She would push and say more about that.
Sure.
You need to say more about that,
Yes.
so the reader will understand, so you
Yes.
can sort of help the reader, draw the reader into your story. And but it was very, very painful,
I see.
reliving those experiences of having grown up in the Deep South during
Sure.
what I call America's apartheid.
Yes, I
era,
noticed your terminology.
And there's a real difference between apartheid and segregation.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and
Yes.
so it was very painful,
Sure.
but it was also cathartic.
Okay.
Okay, it was
Yes.
very cathartic at the same time. And so by the time I finished, I was I shouldn't say I had resolved the issues, but at least I had come to actually acknowledge and to begin to come to grips more so than I had with some of those negative experiences.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, I like in the beginning when you begin to talk about your early schooling process and the importance of honoring what was accomplished when there was so little, and your teacher and the teachers that you mentioned. Could you just recap for us,
Sure.
for those who have not read the book yet,
Sure.
about what it was like to go to school in your early years in the classroom, and why you think the teachers were able to inspire and motivate you?
You know, it's hard to imagine. And when I tell people that I attended a Rosenwald school,
Yes.
they say, "What is a
What is a
Rosenwald
Ros-
school?"
yes.
You know, and so Julius Rosenwald, as you
Yes.
well know,
Yes.
was the president and chief executive officer of what was then known as Sears Roebuck and Company.
Yes.
And so we did not have we had a very weak system of public education for African American people,
Yes.
or black people, or Negroes,
Yes. Yes.
colored people,
Yes.
as we were called then. And so Julius Rosenwald created the Rosenwald Fund, and he actually established about 5,300
Yes.
little schools
Yes.
throughout the rural South,
Yes.
including your native South Carolina.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so, and we had this one teacher in my school, okay, Miss Beatrice Johnson, who had all children in what we call pre-primer through the 6th grade.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
today's
Yes.
kindergartners would be
Sure.
pre-primer
I
students,
got you.
okay?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of school. Everything in my school had been previously used by white kids,
Yes.
except the chalk. That's
Sure.
the only thing that
Yes.
had not been previously
Yes.
used
Yes.
by white children. But I had this teacher, okay? But before I had that teacher, I had these wonderful teachers, two first teachers, my parents.
Your parents. Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
who were,
Yeah.
didn't have much formal education at all, 4th
Mhm.
grade education.
Sure.
But you talking about teachers, they were wonderful teachers. So by the time I got to Smith and Perkins, that little Rosenwald school, and Ms. Johnson had all of us in that classroom.
Sure.
She mastered the art of using older children to bring younger children along.
Sure.
Okay. And so I know people at Indiana and Michigan and all, they think they invented teaching assistants and all of that.
Sure, sure,
But you
sure.
know, in these little Rosenwald schools, they mastered that. And so going to school was not as pleasant
Yes.
as it is for
Yes.
some children and some people now. It was very painful because basically you went to school after you had finished working in the
Yes.
fields and that kind
Yes.
of thing.
Mhm.
And that school bus, Dean, passed me every day with white kids on it, yet we had to walk, okay, 2 to 3 miles a day,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
one way just to
Yes.
get to that little Rosenwald
Yes,
school.
yes,
So it was
yes.
it was not easy,
Right,
okay,
yeah, yeah.
but my parents believed in education,
Yes.
voting, and owning land.
Yes.
Those 3 things.
Yes. Yes.
And why education
Yeah.
when they had so little of it, I'll never know.
Yes.
Okay, but
Yes.
they believe in it, thank goodness, and they bequeathed it to me and my siblings,
Yes.
about 11 of us,
Yes.
that whole appreciation.
Sure. Sure.
But that's a long-winded way of saying, I don't know.
I do believe that even when the conditions were so poor, trying to put a finger on what was different about the teachers then versus the teachers now, when you have so much at your fingertips, they were able to create great leaders and inspire great leaders like yourself that came from those schools in so many ways. I remember you throughout the book talking about some of your classmates and those who had the honor of going on to high school and then moving on after that was very exciting. But I also just want to capture the fact that, you know, going to school, going to college, and then how you got involved with being the scorekeeper and you know, the clock manager of your team. And can you talk about the people who inspired you? One of the things I noticed from your book that you had male and female teachers, but one of the most important threads that came through for me were the men teachers who were present throughout
Sure.
your education. And I found that to be so inspiring because we don't have enough men and education now.
Sure.
But could you talk a little bit about transitioning to high school to college and those mentors and what they gave you?
You know, one of the things that I would say that was really different about Miss Johnson and those other teachers I had, they push you without apology.
That's right.
They
Yes.
push you without apology,
Yes.
and
Yes.
your parents didn't push back and talk about why are you treating my child in
That's
particular.
correct. That's
Miss
correct.
Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Moselle, Miss Miller, all of those teachers knew that we were capable
Yes.
of achieving.
Yes.
And there was never a mistake about that.
That's great.
Okay? They
That's
didn't
wonderful.
refer to us as a bunch of dummies or why
Yes.
didn't you do that?
Yes.
This, that. They
Yes.
never did that
They
kind
never
of thing.
did that.
Okay?
Yes. Yes.
So they encouraged us, they supported us, they pushed us, they
Yeah.
pulled us, they
Mhm.
shoved us,
Mhm.
whatever they needed to do
Sure.
to get the most out of us
Out of you. Yes.
without disrespecting or
Yes.
demeaning us in any
Yes.
kind of way. So that was really one of the things that I think that a difference between then and now.
Yeah.
When I think about some of my sisters, my biological sisters
Sure.
who've been
Yes.
teachers,
Yes.
and who talked about some of the challenges they've had in a contemporary kind of
Mhm.
environment.
Mhm.
But as to the teachers, and so Mr. Milton Moselle was my ag
remember,
teacher, my
yes.
agriculture teacher, for people who don't know what I'm talking
Yes.
about when I say ag
Yes.
teachers.
Sure.
I mean, he just had a way of challenging you without disrespecting you.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
and he
hear
let
you.
it be known what he expected.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and if you didn't understand the expectations, he clarified
Be
them
clear.
for you. Okay, and then
Yes.
he helped you to achieve them.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
incrementally.
Mhm.
He didn't try to get us to jump there all at
Right,
once. And
right.
so Mr. Moselle was one of those teachers. My principal, Mr. Leroy McNeil, and I
Mhm.
talked about him being a man short of
You
stature,
did. Yes.
but looked like it pained him, to have to discipline us
Sure.
and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you knew one thing about Mr. Moselle, Mr. McNeil, Mrs. McNeil, Ms. Miller, all of those teachers.
Yeah.
You knew
Yes, sure.
that they would come to your defense. You knew that they had your back.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
there was no doubt about that,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
And so Mr. Twilley, Mr. Jefferson, the man
Yes.
who taught me algebra and geometry,
Sure,
okay,
sure.
who was mean, and he appeared up to us to be extremely
Sure,
mean and
sure.
non-cordial and all of
Yes,
those kinds of things.
yes.
But even there was never a mistake
Yeah.
that he had your back and that he was going to cover you, not cover for you,
Yes.
but he was going to cover you, okay,
Yes.
with this, envelop you in a
Yes.
caring kind of environment.
Yes.
And so I long for those times. I mean, even now when you look at the teaching profession, it's a disproportionately female profession.
Yeah.
And I celebrate the presence of women in the classroom.
Yes. Yes.
But at the same time, I think it's really important for us to have more males in the classroom
Yes.
who can challenge, who
Yes.
can encourage,
Yes.
and who are willing to be vulnerable in telling their stories.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
As opposed to
Yeah.
having it appear that they're on a pedestal.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I've just had that kind of force. I mean, when I got to Indiana University, Bob Schaefer,
Yes.
August Eberly,
Sure.
Bob Kinker,
Yes.
Phil Chamberlain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But I also had Betty Greenleaf.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
One of the founders of Student Personnel Administration.
Yeah.
Just that discipline. But I just think that authenticity really matters.
Yeah, you mentioned someone that we both shared as a faculty,
Uh-huh.
Dr. Philip Chamberlain.
Okay. Yeah.
You had him and I had him,
Oh,
so that's a
absolutely.
long span.
Legal issues in higher education. I'll never forget that.
Yes,
I still have
yes,
the textbook,
yes,
to be honest with you. I
Yeah,
still have the
yeah.
book.
Well, he
Legal
was
issues.
teaching philanthropy
Oh, was
by
he?
the time
Yeah,
I
by
got
the
here.
time
Yeah,
you got
yeah,
here.
and,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
history, but
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was
yeah,
he
yeah.
was
Yeah.
quite a professor.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
So talk about your college years from going to Arkansas, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff,
Sure, University.
or
of
it was called something
Arkansas A&M.
A&M. That's right. Yeah.
Arkansas Agricultural, Mechanical, and Normal College.
College, that's right.
And, but going there, keep in mind now, Liam, I'm much older than you. So
Yes.
when I came along,
Sure.
I mean, black folk couldn't go to white schools.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, this is a recent phenomenon.
Sure.
Recent
Sure.
in the sense
Yes.
of the last 40 years or
Mhm.
so, okay? But I went off to college over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we had historically black colleges,
Mhm.
Tennessee A&I,
Yes.
Agricultural and Industrial College,
Sure.
North Carolina A&T,
Yes.
South
Yes.
Carolina State,
Yes,
on and on and
yes,
on. So we
yes.
had these black undergraduate schools.
Sure.
And those were the only places we could attend.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if your family could afford it, and these were the days before
Sure.
widespread financial aid like
Right.
Pell Grant
Right.
and
Yes.
loans and all of that kind of thing, then you may end up going to an Allen University or Allen College or
Yes.
Benedict College
Yes.
or
Yes.
Claflin College.
Sure.
In my case, Philander Smith,
Yes.
Arkansas Baptist,
Yes.
or Arkansas A&M. So I went off to Arkansas A&M.
Okay.
Only place I applied to.
Sure. Sure.
Didn't do any good to apply to the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville.
Understand.
Okay, because
Yes.
they weren't going to even
Yes.
look at the application. But I went to that little place,
Mhm.
and I met people there who had been placed there, or had felt as though they'd been placed there just to work with people who looked like me and whose
Yes.
circumstances were similar to mine.
Right. Yes.
I talk about my ACT score
Oh
in that book.
yes. Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
It isn't that my ACT reflected my intellect.
Correct.
It reflected what had not happened by way of preparation and how the school system was not set up to prepare me for college.
Sure.
But
Well, and they weren't set up to prepare most people for
that's
college.
right, okay?
Yes.
But those people said to me, Nelms, you can do it.
You can
Miss
do it.
Shannon, my calculus teacher, said I didn't know I didn't even know what calculus was.
Yes.
Sin, cosine, I didn't know any of
Sure.
that.
Sure.
And she tapped me on the head. She said, boy, you can get this, boy. Think. She said, think.
That's the beauty of,
You know?
of teachers,
Yeah,
then, you know.
That's right. And so at this little school, they would not allow you to accept what had happened to you
Good.
prior to your arrival
Good.
to what could happen to you if you prepared going forward.
Yeah.
See, that to me is an important message that comes
Sure.
through all the time in your book.
Yeah. Well, I tried to bring that point out. Elias Blake,
Yes.
who was the president of Clark College, put it this way.
Yeah.
Black colleges provided a psychologically supportive environment
Mm-hmm.
for black kids.
Yes.
A psychologically supportive environment.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
In other words, I felt at home there. I didn't feel that I had to prove anything to anybody
Yes. Yes.
because it said, Nelms, you can do it.
Sure.
But I worked on the college farm,
Yes, you did.
making 75 cents per hour.
Yes.
You know, not 75 cents per hour. That was what I earned. But I learned so much from Mr. Holliday,
Mhm.
you know, the chair of the Department of Agriculture and the
Yes.
farm manager.
Yes.
Just with a quiet kind of
Yes.
demeanor, persistent.
Sure.
He wasn't a stern man,
Yeah.
but just a warm, caring
Mhm.
kind of person. I worked on that college farm. You know, worked in the bookstore.
Well, I got to tell this.
Sure.
You were such a gentleman and sincere and committed, even as a young man, when you were offered another position away from the farm, and the way you went in and had a discussion with the man who offered you the position, and back to the gentleman who hired you for the farm, and you know how you had a conversation with him and you were responsible and said, you know, I'm going to do this until someone else comes along.
Sure.
And then you took another position. And I just thought that was a good lesson
Sure.
for never burning bridges.
Sure.
And you talk later in the book about, you know, being upset with the president. You were going to write him a letter
Sure.
about something.
Yeah.
And you waited
Yeah.
and let it
Sure,
set.
sure, sure.
So you give good little lessons
Sure.
throughout your book
Sure.
that are so important
Sure.
in that sense.
Let me say this. So one of the things that I learned early in life from my father, and you know, I don't ever remember my father saying I love you, but I knew he loved me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
My mother and father had 11 children. That was a lot of love. That was a lot of love, right? So they didn't have to go around telling me, I love you, darling.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to
Sure.
hear it. But you know, in other words, I knew it because it demonstrated it every day. But what I learned from Eddie Nelms Sr. and Carrie D. Nelms and all of those teachers,
Mhm.
your word is your bond.
Your word, that's absolutely.
Your word is your bond. And at
Yes.
the end of the day, that's
Yes.
really all you
That's
have
it.
to stand on.
That's right.
Because all of your little diplomas and certificates and plaques and all of, but at the end of the day, the only thing you have is your word.
It's your word.
And so keep your word.
Yes.
And that's what Mr. Holliday meant when he said, I'm going to give you boys a chance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But I want you to keep your word.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so we kept our word.
Yes,
And
you
so, and it was important for me to do that because Mr. Holliday had kept his word
Yes.
in supporting me. And that's what I say to young aspiring leaders.
Yes.
It's just be a person of your word.
Be a person of your word.
But you know, the other thing that came so clear that is a lesson for today is I think leaders, students that, and throughout your stories, not only did you keep your word, you put in the time, you put in the effort, and you were in the churn. I mean, getting up early in the morning to get to that farm, to get to your classes by 8, eating breakfast, and then, you know, it's something about the churn that people are busy now,
Sure.
but it's something about staying in the, you know, the being committed and being prepared and keeping your word that advances you in a way that you don't get it. You know, most people think you get it just like that, or you make it look easy. And so that's one of the major things that I got from reading your book, that you're a risk taker, and that you're always prepared and giving 150% where you are, so that when that door was open, you were able to go through there.
Yeah. And you know, ma'am, one of the things that I would say to you is that there is really no acceptable excuse for lack of preparation.
That's correct. Yes.
And
yes.
preparation is inextricably linked to self-discipline.
It is. It is. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
I still get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, should I be getting up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a part of my lifestyle.
Yes, it is.
But I don't just get up.
Right.
I try to do something productive. Not try, I do something
Yes,
productive.
yes,
I
yeah,
read,
yeah.
I write,
Yeah.
I meditate,
Sure.
I go to the gym every day.
Yes.
Okay, so it's
Yes.
not a wasted 2 hours when I
Sure.
get up or
Sure.
anything like that. And so, and I think that those early habits that I formed even before leaving high school and going to college,
Yeah.
they've served me well.
Sure.
Okay, and
Yes.
we had a little saying back
Yes.
in
Yes.
Arkansas, farm people, the early bird gets the worm.
That's true. Where I'm from is the same thing.
The early bird gets the worm, you know,
Yes.
and so, and I say that to my son, and I say that to other people,
Yeah.
young people. It's not a matter of being busy, but it's a matter of being productively engaged. There's a difference between being busy
Yes.
and being productively engaged.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
and so why would I go to a meeting having not read the
Yes.
materials that
Yes.
my deans and vice chancellors and my colleagues take time to send out?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And I knew the material pretty well by the
Yes.
time I got to my classes,
Yes.
by the
Yes.
time I got to a meeting or whatever the case might be. So I think it's all about self-discipline.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
So, what would you say to aspiring faculty or administrators or someone who wants to be a dean, a provost, or a chancellor, as you were chancellor, you know, in Michigan, Indiana, as well as North Carolina, historically black as well as white institutions? What would you say to them about, number one, preparation, but also getting themselves prepared mentally,
Sure.
physically,
Yeah.
emotionally for these
Yeah.
positions these days?
Oh, so I think there's a lot of confusion over having a degree and being educated.
Okay. Yes.
And I meet a lot of people every day in the course of my working with boards of trustees and faculty groups
Sure.
and all of that, who are well degreed,
Mhm.
but they're not fully educated.
Understood.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so education is a much more inclusive, intentional, holistic kind of process,
Okay.
where there's good alignment between your intellectual piece, your emotional piece,
Sure.
your social piece,
Sure.
all of those
Yes,
things. And
yes.
so, and that you can think critically and analytically. So I would say that anyone who aspires to be a leader in any realm,
Yes.
whether it's in education or corporations or church
Mhm.
life, is that you really need to make sure that you're prepared,
Okay.
that your body, your spirit, and your intellect are all aligned and fortified.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Okay?
Yes.
And the
yeah.
way you do that, I think, the way I did it,
Yes.
was to read extensively beyond just my own discipline.
Sure. Yes.
So if we're
Yes.
talking about informatics,
Yes.
I know enough about informatics to be able to engage in the
In
conversation.
the conversation,
Okay.
correct. Yes.
I know enough about finance
Yes.
in order to engage in the conversation. So be aligned in ways I talked about. Be prepared by
Yes.
reading and
Yes.
thinking beyond your own discipline.
Mhm.
And then thirdly is don't personalize stuff.
That's good.
Don't personalize
Sure.
everything.
Sure.
Okay. Now some things you can't help but personalize.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But to the extent that you see something personal in everything that you're dealing with,
Right.
when in fact it just may be the issue surrounding a particular
Sure.
matter.
Sure.
So don't personalize things. And then the final thing is don't set limits on yourself.
Good. Yes.
Don't set
Yes.
limits on yourself.
Yes.
So I knew I wanted to be a college president,
Sure.
and I had a mentor,
Yes.
Lawrence Davis, Prexy Davis,
Yes.
who said, "Boy, you can do it."
That's wonderful.
He didn't say, "You man, what are you talking about? You from the cotton fields, you can't do that." He said, "You can do it." Now,
Yes.
whether he believed it, I think
Yes.
he really believed it.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that was a kind of reinforcement for me to say, yeah, this work is going to pay off someday. But even if it had never become a college president,
Sure. Yeah.
that would have been okay because
Well,
of the
you-
quality of my life.
You had that vision early on in your life. That was amazing. I mean,
Sure.
it must have been mid-20s or
Oh, I at
Oh, my
19.
no, so
20 years
you
old,
had
yeah.
you had that vision,
Yeah.
and boy, talk about you talk about having a vision, holding it in your heart, and making it come true. That's so spiritual in many ways,
Sure.
you know, and so you just kept that vision and kept being open to the various mentors and working hard. And it's interesting how you got to the chancellor
Yeah.
position. Do you want to talk about your first
I
chancellorship?
want to talk about that, but let me just say something. You know, one of the things that I reckon, my reason for wanting to become a college president had more to do with wanting to fix and resolve issues than it was to somehow get to some
Yes.
position.
Yes, I understand.
And so I was motivated, and I
Yes.
still am motivated
Yes.
for what I do every day.
Yes.
I want to make things better
Right.
for
Yes.
historically disenfranchised people
Sure.
who look like me and
Yes.
who may not look like me. So
Right.
I've
Yes.
never been confused about that piece.
No, you haven't.
And when you're in a position of leadership, you have the opportunity
Mhm.
to change the narrative
Yes.
and the conversation.
Yes.
You have the
Yes.
opportunity to raise questions that will challenge the assumptions that people base decision making on.
Sure.
Okay? And so that was the motivation for my doing that. Now, did I enjoy the ride? You better believe I did. Okay? I enjoyed it, but that wasn't exactly what I set out to do, to say I'm going to have this great ride.
Yeah.
But what I would say to you is, and so in some ways, I came along at a wonderful time.
Yeah.
You know, the civil rights movement had opened up opportunities for people, and I had followed the advice of my mentors at Arkansas Community College, and had come on to Indiana University
Yes.
and got a degree early.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I wasn't a kid, but I was like 27 years old, I think,
Yeah.
or whatever age I was when I got my doctorate, or 30, whatever it was, from Indiana University. And part of it was I had good experience, and I was in the right place at the right time, and the right people. John Ryan,
Yes. Yes.
Herman Wells, and
Yes.
those people
Sure,
were looking
sure.
at me, and
Yeah.
people are looking at you when you don't even know it.
That's right.
Lynn Merritt, a
Yes.
professor of chemistry,
Yes.
not of higher education, but
Sure.
a professor of chemistry
Yes.
at Indiana University.
Yeah.
Glenn Ludlow,
Mhm.
okay, who was an administrator here and a statistician,
Yes.
okay, who would help
Yes.
me with my statistics. And so part of it was preparation, aspiration, preparation,
Mhm.
okay, and then being in the eye of people who could make some things happen. And John Ryan, who were willing to take risks,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So John Ryan had me
Yes.
go off to the least diverse campus of all of our youth campuses.
Oh, yes.
It was the smallest, but it was
Yes.
also
Yes.
the least diverse.
Sure. Sure.
So if I had any juice or gas in the tank, you know, I had to figure out a way to make it work at IU East.
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
and he sent me to
Yes.
Richmond.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so he said to people, if I wait for all of the people on campus in the community to be ready, there will never be a black chancellor.
That's great. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. And I love, you know, as you maneuvered throughout your career, what made the book so interesting and gave it another dimension is talking about Janetta's reaction to each move.
Yeah.
She has been such a good partner, but her reaction to each move was also just another dimension that showed you in loving and being kind and balancing.
Yeah.
You know, we forget that we have seasons in our lives and we have to balance all this stuff.
Yeah. I didn't quite learn the lesson yet because Janetta is still wondering why I'm doing some of the stuff I do at my age. But we've been married, be 51 years on August 3rd.
Congratulations.
And so we sort of made a pact, you know, as me being a freshman and she was a sophomore, that we wanted to try to change the world.
That's wonderful.
You know, and that's what we really set out to do,
Yes.
is to make a difference, not
Yes.
change the world in
Yes.
terms of
Yes.
turning things upside down,
Yes.
but really to be difference makers.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and so we signed on to that, and that meant supporting. And she has had to give a lot. I mean, she is my rock. Man.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? So some people say, well, behind every good man, there's a good woman. That's a lie.
Yeah.
In front of every man,
Yes,
or
yes.
next to every man,
Yes,
there's a supportive other.
Sure.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
and so I've had that supportive other in Janetta,
That's
and
wonderful.
so I celebrate her and
Yep.
I honor her
Yep.
and love her.
Yes.
And you didn't ask
Yes.
me for all of this, but the whole point is that it's really about relationships.
It is. It is.
It's about relationships, authentic relationships.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, you guys have made such a difference in this community and in the Bloomington community, and you know, your scholarships to students and your mentorship and leadership continues to help the next generation. And you know, in honoring, you have been at the cusp of our society changing in many ways. You know, we don't often talk about in the South, you know, moving from agrarian to more industrial, from the outhouse to the bathroom, and then, you know, with the civil rights and the integration period, and, you know, managing not only the diversity of students, but technology and research and all of that. And so you've been in the midst of being a part of those changes and managing those changes in a way that a lot of leaders may never know what that means.
And I tell you what, that's one of the things that has made life so exciting.
Mhm.
Okay. At the same time, that's one of the things that's really distressing to me
Yes.
as a black person who grew up in the Deep South,
Mhm.
and I see some of these antics
Yes.
that are playing out on the national political
Sure.
stage.
Sure.
And when I see the religious community that played a very active role in the
Oh,
civil
yes.
rights movement,
Yes.
now they've
Yes.
become mute,
Yes.
okay?
Correct.
Or corporate America politicians. I mean, think about the voter suppression. My parents had to pay a poll tax in order to vote.
Yeah.
So how can I sit there and be quiet
Yes.
when I see this voter suppression legislation
Oh, sure.
going through, zooming through the legislature in North Carolina,
Sure.
in Indiana,
Mhm.
you know, in Tennessee, with the governor just deciding
Yeah.
to sign legislation to honor, you know, Confederate persons and so on and so
Yes.
forth. And so, yes, I've had a chance to see a lot of positive changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you, Dean, I'm not as optimistic as I was, and I hate to say that
Yeah.
after more than 50 years in higher education and in my profession. I hate to say that,
Yeah.
but part of my optimism is constrained by the lack of voice
I got you.
that people who are in a position to
Right.
know better
Yes.
and to encourage and push people to do
Sure.
better are just
Yes.
sort of mute.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's troubling to me.
Yeah. Why do you think that is these days?
They don't want to they don't want to lose their position.
Okay.
You know, I had a conversation with a reporter 3 weeks ago on reparations.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And the person said to me, but you've done well,
Yeah.
you know, and you've had these positions and on and on and on. And what I said to him, it's really not about me.
That's right.
It's really about what happens to the masses of the people.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And what I see, you say, why is it that some of our colleagues, many of our colleagues, are not as vocal or engaged as they should be?
Sure.
Is because they don't want to end up upsetting the apple cart in many instances.
Sure.
And so they they've developed and live a lifestyle
Yes.
that if that
Yes.
lifestyle were
Yeah.
to disappear,
Yeah.
okay, part of who they are would disappear.
disappear.
And they don't want to do anything to unfortunately, and maybe that's a cynical kind of way of
Yes,
looking at it.
yes,
But
yes.
I've searched for ways to explain it, and I just simply can't explain it.
Yeah, I understand.
So what would you say to leaders, like myself, who's in charge of education and, or superintendents?
Sure.
And, you know, one of the things that I believe is we need to disrupt
Sure.
the system.
Sure.
Not just to disrupt it, but because there are communities and kids suffering every day. But how would you advise someone like myself or other educational leaders to have a voice and to get more engaged?
Sure. So I would recommend 4 things, you know. So, in university administration, leadership as a university chancellor, I learned to talk quickly.
Yes,
Sometimes
yes.
I get long-winded, but
Yeah.
you know,
You're fine.
quickly, and I
Yes.
talk 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
because
yes.
if you have 15 minutes and you're talking with a donor, you got to get to your point.
Yes,
Before
yes.
the 60th minute.
Yes,
Okay, you got to
yes.
get to it early.
Yes.
And so 4 things.
Yes,
So number 1 is really understand what is happening.
sure.
Don't get caught up in the social media 180 characters, 280 characters as to what's happening.
Yes.
So
yes,
really
yes.
understand the contextual framework
Sure.
in which education, occurs.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that you got to understand context. You got to understand the history,
Yes.
and the history is part of the context. The sociology of it,
Yes.
the anthropology.
Yes.
You got to understand all of
Yes.
that. So understand it.
Mhm.
Secondly, you have to have some sense of what you want to get accomplished during your tenure.
Yes. Yes.
You're only going to be here for a season. Whoever is superintendent
Yes.
is only going to be there for a season.
Sure.
President is
Sure.
only going to be
Sure.
in place for a season.
Yeah.
So what do you want? When you look back, when you walk out of that door and they give you that plaque and that little superficial reception,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Maybe that's just really unkind to call it a superficial reception. But when they give you that reception
Yes.
and they give you that plaque,
Sure.
you want to have something that you're leaving behind beyond the fact that you were the ex-dean or the ex-president of an institution.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you want to be a difference maker.
Okay.
And in what ways do you want to make a difference? So think about it rather reflectively, intentionally, in a focused kind of way, because you can't do everything.
Yes.
The third thing that I would say is to surround yourself with people who support your vision.
Right. Yes.
It's hard enough to get your visions, your ideas across,
Yes,
okay?
yes.
But you need people around you who support what it is you want to see accomplished and who can complete your sentences for you.
Sure. Yes. 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 Understood.
They don't have to wait for everything. They can complete the sentence,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
And they support,
Right.
okay? They encourage, they enable,
Mhm.
okay? And they
Yes.
produce,
Sure.
okay? That's the third thing. And then the fourth thing is persist.
Right.
Just be persistent as hell.
Yes. Yes.
You can't give up. I used to be a marathon runner,
I know.
okay?
Yes.
And all of the runners the starting lines is the same for all of them.
Sure.
The finish line is the same for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them start quickly and they fade by the 5th or 6th mile. Some of them start swiftly or not so swiftly and they fade at mile 12.
Sure.
Some at 18,
Yes.
some at 21, some at 25.2.
Yes.
The race is 26.2,
Yes.
not 25.2.
Right.
So the key thing is, in order to have a good race, whether it's a marathon or whether it's a 5K or 10K,
Mhm.
you have to be prepared and
Yes.
you have to be persistent. And so just because you have a little setback, I would say there's no reason to quit.
Good.
There's an old saying that you can't adjust the direction of the wind, but you can adjust your sail.
Yes, you can. Yes.
So, as we think about ending this has been so inspirational for me as always.
Thank you.
What do you really want people to get from this book? And I will say that in each chapter you give those 1, 2, 3, 4, and I love that.
Sure.
But what is it when they put this book down and they're sitting having a cup of tea, just thinking, what is it you want people to walk away with
Yeah.
from this book?
So here I come back with these numbers
Okay.
again, okay? Number one, I want people to walk away feeling that people are more than their test scores.
Yes.
people are more than their ethnicity, people are more than their gender, people are more than their socioeconomic status. I mean, that's really the most important thing.
Yes.
And be careful not to make judgments and make decisions about other people based on your lack of knowledge and your shortcomings.
Sure.
So that's one thing I want.
Yes.
Second thing is this whole notion of teaching ourselves and the people we're charged to work with to dream big.
Yes. Yes.
If you're gonna dream, why get a little piddly, little teeny itty dream? Get a big
That's
dream.
That's right.
You know, and if you miss, you're going to end up someplace higher than you would be. So Herman Wells said that dream no small dreams. They're neither worthy of your time, nor your intellect, nor your attention.
I love that. I love that.
Don't go around dreaming a little dream.
Sure.
So get, you know,
Sure. Yeah.
that's the second thing I want people. Maybe that may be the third, I don't know. But the next thing I want them to walk away with
Yes.
is this whole notion that they can make a difference.
Mhm.
You know, and
Yes,
your difference
yes.
may not be my difference may not be your difference.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
But Gandhi said we must be the change we wish to see in the world. So I don't wait for anybody else to do
Good. That's wonderful.
what I'm capable of doing.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
And then the final thing is you know, we're more than our jobs, we're more than our houses,
Yes.
we're more than all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So those are some of the takeaways. And if they just walk away with a partial, one tiny bit of either one of those, then I think it'll be worth the read. Yeah.
Is there any last words of wisdom you would like to share with us before
Yeah.
we?
The last word of wisdom would be buy the book. Buy the book.
And this is what the
Yeah,
book looked
yeah, yeah.
like. It is from
Yeah.
Cotton Fields to University Leadership.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm saying jokingly about buy it. I do
Okay.
really want people to buy it because all of the royalties from the sale of this book
Right.
are going to UNCF, for the United Negro College Fund, and to the Thurgood Marshall College Fund for
Okay.
scholarships for students enrolled at historically black
Yes,
colleges and
yes.
universities.
Okay.
And I know that those little scholarships made a big difference in my
They do.
ability to
They
be
do.
afford college. And so, buy the book,
Yes.
read the book,
Yes.
and take something away, whether you take a lot or a little.
Oh, they get a lot out of it. But, you know, I enjoyed the book.
Sure.
And we'll probably put it in as presents for Christmas. And we're also getting a copy for our advisory board, Dean's Advisory Board, and have invited you in to say a
Thank
few
you.
words. So
Thank you.
this has been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you
much
for
so.
it.
You're welcome, Dr.
Thank you
Nelms.
very
Thank
much.
you for everything that
very
you've done
much.
for
Thank
us.
you. Thank you very much.